Support us with a subscription. The stories will come more often. Enjoy watching. 7 years ago, Jessica abandoned her broke husband and newborn twins for a rich investor. Now she's back, expecting forgiveness. But the family she left behind has moved on and up. What she finds will shatter her pride and expose a brutal truth. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. The rain didn't let up for hours. It pounded the windows of the tiny East St. Louis apartment like a warning. Inside, David Miller sat at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of overdue bills. He was 38, a construction worker with calloused hands and no sleep in days. His 2-month-old twin daughters, Lily and Grace, cried in the bedroom again, hungry, wet, and too young to understand the chaos around them. Jessica, his wife, didn't move. She was on the couch scrolling through her phone, watching influencer videos from Miami, Paris, and LA, places she'd never been, lives she envied. David stood up, exhausted, and went to calm the babies. He scooped them up, one in each arm, whispering comfort through clenched teeth. "Daddy's here. It's okay." Their little cries softened, just barely. From behind him came her voice, sharp and cold. "David, this food tastes like trash. What is this even supposed to be?" He turned. She was holding up a plate of spaghetti, what he'd managed to cook using the last of their groceries. "It's all we had left," he said quietly. "I made it with love." Jessica laughed, not kindly. "Love? Love doesn't pay rent, David. Love doesn't buy diapers or stop my friends from traveling the world while I'm stuck here in this dump." The twins started crying again, picking up on the tension. David held them tighter, trying to shield them from the words. She stood, her eyes locked on him like he was the enemy. "Look at this life. Second-hand everything, hand-me-down baby clothes, cracked floors, and you working 16-hour shifts and still broke." "I'm doing the best I can," David said, voice shaking. "For you. For them." Another notification lit up her phone. She glanced down, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. But it wasn't for him. It wasn't for her daughters. "Who's texting you this late?" David asked. She tucked the phone out of sight. "No one." But he knew better. The new clothes, the late-night girls' nights, the unexplained purchases. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. "Jessica, are you seeing someone?" She hesitated, then answered without apology. "His name is Logan Reed. He's an investor from Atlanta. He drives a Maybach, owns a penthouse, and actually knows how to treat a woman." Then she showed David a photo on her phone, Logan in front of a luxury car, suit perfectly pressed. "He's flying me out tomorrow," she added, like it was normal. Like it was acceptable to abandon your husband and newborn twins. David's grip tightened on the crib's edge to keep from collapsing. "What about the girls?" he asked. "What about your family?" Jessica didn't flinch. "This isn't a family. This is survival. I'm done living like this." She hurled the plate of spaghetti across the room. It shattered against the wall, the food splattering on the floor like a final insult. David stood frozen as she stormed into the bedroom and began packing. Drawers slammed, hangers clattered. She emerged minutes later with a suitcase in hand, makeup fresh, wearing the one dress that still looked expensive. At the door, she paused, not to apologize, but to check her lipstick in a compact mirror. She didn't look back. "Goodbye, David." And just like that, she was gone. The door slammed. The twins whimpered. David dropped to his knees in the mess she left behind, surrounded by broken ceramic, cold food, and the sound of 2 baby girls crying for a mother who no longer cared. He was alone, completely. Over the next 3 days, David barely slept. He fed the girls with what little formula he had left, working shifts when he could, then coming home to care for them. He hadn't showered. His hands shook from exhaustion, but he refused to give up. On the 4th night, a knock came at the door. It was Rachel Carter, his neighbor, a 31-year-old single mom whose husband had died years earlier in a car crash. She held a casserole and wore a look of quiet determination. "When's the last time you slept?" she asked. David tried to answer. He couldn't. Rachel stepped inside, went straight to the babies and picked one up with ease. "Where's Jessica?" "Gone." Rachel didn't ask why. She didn't need to. Then we figure it out, she said simply. You're not alone. And for the first time since that door had slammed shut, David felt like maybe, just maybe, he could make it through. Rachel didn't ask for anything in return. She didn't come over out of pity. She came because she knew what it was like to be left holding the pieces. Her husband had died in a wreck when her son Marcus was only 4. She'd built herself back up, and when she saw David unraveling with 2 infants and no help, she knew he needed someone who understood survival. I work mornings at Murphy's Diner, she said. I'm off by 2. I can watch the girls until you get home. David resisted at first. He didn't want to feel like a burden, but exhaustion doesn't ask for permission. After 3 straight nights without sleep, he finally nodded. Rachel showed up at 7 a.m. sharp, 5 days a week. She changed diapers, warmed bottles, calmed tantrums, and taught David tricks for getting twins to nap at the same time. The babies grew attached to her faster than David expected. When they cried, her voice soothed them. When they reached out, it was for her. Weeks turned into months. David started getting full nights of sleep again. He began showing up to work with a clear head, slowly rebuilding his hours. He started saying yes to weekend jobs, yes to overtime, yes to anything that would keep diapers stocked and the rent paid. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. He began to feel something shift at home, with Rachel, with the girls. He would walk in from work and see her bouncing Grace on her hip, humming softly while Lily dozed on the couch. Their tiny faces were calmer now, healthier, happier. Once he overheard Rachel whisper to Grace during a feeding, "Come on, sweet girl, Mama's got you." The baby didn't flinch. She just smiled and closed her eyes. David stood in the hallway, heart pounding. He didn't correct her. Neither did Rachel. By the twins' first birthday, Rachel had become part of their daily rhythm, and not just theirs, his too. Late one night, after putting the girls to sleep, David found Rachel cleaning up in the kitchen. She looked up as he walked in. "Thank you," he said, his voice cracked. "For everything. For saving us." She paused, drying her hands. "You saved yourself. I just helped where I could." David hesitated. "They love you. You know that, right?" Rachel looked down. "I love them too." He stepped closer. "They see you as their mom." She smiled, but it was sad. "I know." He reached for her hand. "You are, Rachel, in every way that matters." They didn't kiss that night. There was no sudden romance. Just 2 people standing in the quiet kitchen, finally admitting something they'd both known for months. This wasn't temporary anymore. Then fate stepped in. It was a Tuesday in early spring. The sky had been clear that morning, but by evening, the clouds had rolled in fast. David was walking home from a construction site when he saw the car, flipped on its side near a gas station. A woman lay beside it, barely conscious, bleeding from her head. Dozens of drivers passed. Nobody stopped. David did. He ran through the rain, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" "My leg," she whispered. "I can't move it." He called 911, then stayed with her, holding his jacket over her until paramedics arrived. At the hospital, he waited. For hours. Even when the staff told him he could leave, he stayed. Finally, a doctor approached. "Are you family?" "No, I found her. She's stable, but she needs an emergency transfusion. Her blood type is AB negative. Rare. We're short." David didn't hesitate. "Test me." 20 minutes later, his blood was flowing into her body. Nurses called him a hero. He didn't feel like one. He just did what he thought was right. 3 weeks later, a call came. A voice asked him to come to the Four Seasons Hotel, room 1247. No details. Just a request. Rachel urged him to go. Sometimes the world circles back. He went. The woman he saved was Margaret Whitmore, founder of Whitmore Freight Logistics, a national shipping company worth hundreds of millions. "You didn't just save my life," she told him. "You stayed when others walked away." "I recognize character when I see it, and I don't ignore it." She offered him a job, entry-level logistics coordinator. No handouts, just a chance. David accepted. He started at the bottom, filing, scheduling, learning. He soaked up everything. Margaret noticed. Within 6 months, she promoted him. Within a year again, he took online courses in logistics, business, and negotiation. While Rachel managed the house and cared for the twins, David worked his way up. He earned every raise, every promotion. 2 years in, he was named Vice President of Strategic Development. By the time the twins turned 5, the construction worker who'd once fed them with his last paycheck was now managing contracts worth millions. And his family, Rachel and the girls, moved with him to Dallas, Texas. There, in a quiet suburb, they started fresh. David bought a house, not for status, for safety, for security, for the daughters who now went to private school, and the woman who never once left his side. The life Jessica threw away, it had become everything she once claimed she wanted. But she wasn't part of it anymore. Not even a memory. Not yet. Jessica Reed hadn't planned for her future, only her escape. She believed Logan Reed would be her upgrade, her rescue. And for a while he was. He flew her to Atlanta, showed her luxury, surrounded her with parties and people who spoke in money. But luxury has a short memory. 3 years into the fantasy, Logan's business took a hit. He spiraled into debt and then into the kind of accident that doesn't leave survivors. The funeral was cold. His family was colder. Jessica, who had no legal claim and no backup plan, was told to pack her things and leave the penthouse. No settlement, no favors. Not even a ride to the curb. She couch surfed, then ran out of couches. She worked a few part-time jobs, but nothing stuck. Age, stress, and choices had taken their toll. The woman who once rejected spaghetti on a paper plate now ate alone in gas station parking lots, scrolling through social media accounts she wasn't supposed to be following. That's how she found them. David Miller, her husband, the one she left holding 2 screaming babies, was now wearing suits, shaking hands with CEOs, and smiling in front of company banners with a woman by his side. Rachel. In post after post, Jessica saw Rachel at school events, holding hands with Lily and Grace, posing with David on vacation, always smiling, always present. Jessica's stomach twisted. The pain wasn't just regret. It was rage. Rage that she had been replaced, that the man she left behind had done what she never believed he could, build a life better than the one she ran to. That should have been her life. 7 years after walking out, Jessica scraped together what little she had left and bought a Greyhound ticket to Texas. One bag, no plan, just a desperate hope that the man she abandoned would be foolish enough to forgive. The bus pulled into Dallas at dawn. She took an Uber to the address she found online. 4127 Legacy Drive. The house didn't look like the kind of place David would ever afford. It didn't look like anything he could even imagine during those nights in their tiny apartment. 3-car driveway, perfect lawn, a home that screamed stability. Jessica stood at the door for a long time before pressing the bell. Footsteps. The door opened, and Rachel stood there. No one else. Not David. Not the girls. Just the woman who had stepped into Jessica's life, into her role, and somehow made it look effortless. Jessica tried to speak. She had rehearsed a dozen lines on the bus. How she had changed, how she wanted to make things right, how no one could replace a mother. But standing there, seeing Rachel comfortable, calm, confident, it all evaporated. Instead, Jessica blurted out, "What are you doing in my husband's house?" Rachel didn't flinch. "Your husband? You don't belong here," Jessica snapped. "I'm their mother." Rachel's expression didn't change. She didn't argue. She didn't yell. She just stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "You left," Rachel said calmly. "You weren't forced out. You chose to go. You didn't just leave David. You left your babies." Jessica's voice rose. "They're mine." "No, you gave up that right. You didn't write. You didn't call. You never asked if they were okay. And now, after 7 years, you want to claim them like they're some reward?" Jessica's eyes welled with tears, but Rachel didn't stop. "You know what happened the day you left? David fell apart, but he didn't quit. He stayed. He fed them, changed them, sang to them, held them through sickness and sleepless nights. And when he was too tired to stand, he still showed up." She paused, letting that sink in. "And I was there too, every day, from the first bottle to the first steps. They call me Mom, not because I told them to, but because I was. Inside, laughter echoed. Two little girls playing a game, unaware of the confrontation happening outside. Jessica looked toward the sound. They don't even know who I am. No, Rachel said softly. And that's not their fault. That's yours. The door opened again. This time, David stepped out. He looked older, stronger. He wasn't the man Jessica had left behind. He didn't smile. Why are you here? He asked. Jessica swallowed hard. I want to come back. I made a mistake. David glanced at Rachel, then back at Jessica. A mistake is burning dinner, not walking out on your children. I didn't know how hard it would be, she said quietly. And I didn't know I'd survive it, David replied. But I did, and I did it without you. He looked her over. Everything about her seemed smaller now. Not in size, but in presence. She used to tower over him with demands. Now she looked like someone hoping for scraps. Jessica, I forgive you, but that doesn't mean you're part of our lives. Not anymore. Tears streamed down her face, but David didn't flinch. I built this life for my daughters, for the woman who stayed. You made your choice. He turned back toward the door. Jessica stepped forward. Please, can I just see them? No, Rachel answered, firm. Not today. Maybe not ever. Not until they're old enough to decide for themselves. The door closed. Jessica stood on the porch, alone, holding the crumpled remains of a plan that never had a future. The house behind her buzzed with life, a life she had abandoned, a life that had gone on, a life that no longer needed her. Jessica didn't leave the front porch right away. She stood there in silence, expecting something to shift, to crack open. A window, a second chance, anything. But nothing happened. No one came back. The door stayed shut. Eventually, the Uber driver she had asked to wait honked from the curb. She climbed in without a word, hands shaking, and asked to be taken to the nearest motel. That night, Jessica lay awake in a stained room with flickering lights and thin walls. Through the cracked ceiling, she could hear rain starting to fall again. It reminded her of the night she left St. Louis, of the sound of the door slamming and the babies crying behind it. She had believed she was trading chaos for comfort, stress for success. Now she had neither. For the next 2 weeks, she remained in Dallas, lingering in cheap motels and walking the sidewalks near schools, hoping for a glimpse of Lily and Grace. But she never saw them. The neighborhood was gated, and David had made sure security knew her face. She tried calling, once, a burner phone, a blocked number. She left a voicemail. I just want to explain, she said. Just one coffee, 5 minutes. No one responded. Jessica ran out of money within days. No friends in the city, no job history anyone cared about. She applied at diners and cleaning companies. No callbacks. She couldn't put former trophy girlfriend under work experience. Eventually, she left Texas. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. One bus ticket back to Atlanta. No more dreams, no more plans, only regret. Back in Dallas, life didn't pause. David didn't mention the visit to the girls. He didn't need to. They had no memory of the woman who left them at 2 months old. Their mother was Rachel, the only one they'd ever known. But David felt the weight of it, the closure, the finality. That chapter of his life had ended on a porch in Texas, and the door had stayed closed for good reason. Rachel had been quiet after the confrontation. She didn't celebrate or gloat. She just carried on, getting the girls ready for school, helping with homework, managing the household like she always had. But something between her and David shifted again. Not out of fear or defense, but clarity. One evening, after the girls had gone to sleep, David sat down next to her in the kitchen. She's gone, he said. Rachel nodded. I know. She won't be back. I didn't think she would. David paused. You sure you're okay? Rachel looked at him. I've never been more sure about anything. They didn't need more words. They didn't need to relive the past. They had built something stronger than old wounds, and now they could move forward without shadows. A few months later, David received an invitation to speak at a logistics summit in Chicago. Margaret Whitmore, now semi-retired, would be introducing him as one of the company's top executives. He brought Rachel and the girls with him, made it a family trip. After his speech, a young reporter approached him. "You've had quite a journey. Any advice for people starting from nothing?" David thought for a moment. Then he said, "Start by staying. Anyone can leave when it gets hard. Staying takes work. Staying builds trust, and trust builds everything else." The reporter nodded and scribbled it down. Back in Atlanta, Jessica read the article. She had found it by accident, scrolling through a logistics blog at a public library, killing time between temp jobs. There was a photo of David at the summit, standing next to Rachel and the twins. The caption read, "David Miller, VP of Strategic Development at Whitmore Freight, with his wife Rachel and their twin daughters, Grace and Lily." That was it. Final confirmation. She wasn't even a footnote. Jessica closed the laptop and stared at the blank screen. She had left for something better. But better had never existed. What she gave up wasn't struggle. It was love in its rawest, most loyal form. And she had traded it for lies. She sat there for a long time, realizing something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She wasn't the villain in some tragic love story. She was just someone who walked out too soon. And no one had waited for her to come back. Years passed. The pain of the past didn't vanish. It settled, like dust, undisturbed but always there, in the background. David never tried to erase it. He didn't want to forget where he came from. The memories of those nights with empty bottles, crying babies, and the silence left behind when Jessica walked out, they were part of the foundation he'd built his life on. But those weren't the moments that defined him. Not anymore. What defined David was waking up every morning to the sound of his daughters giggling down the hallway. It was Rachel dancing in the kitchen with Lily while Grace begged to be twirled next. It was being present at every school recital, every science fair, every scraped knee and lost tooth. He hadn't just rebuilt his life, he had created something stronger than anything he thought was possible. Peace, stability, real love. Rachel continued to thrive in her own way. She never asked for credit, never demanded recognition. But the truth was, she had been the quiet force that turned survival into growth. Her presence turned a crisis into a home. Her love turned abandoned children into secure, thriving girls. Lily and Grace didn't ask about Jessica, not until they were nearly 10. It was Grace who asked first. She had seen a family tree project at school and noticed something missing. "Did I come from someone else before Mom?" David and Rachel had agreed on this moment years ago. They didn't lie. "Yes," David said. "You had another mom, but she left when you were little. Too little to remember." "Why did she leave?" "She wasn't ready to be a mom." Grace thought for a moment. "But Mom stayed." David nodded. "She did," Lily added. "So she's our real mom." Rachel smiled, tears quietly forming in her eyes. "I'm lucky to be." That was the last time the girls asked about Jessica. By the time the twins were teenagers, David had become a name in the logistics world. Invited to speak at conferences, interviewed on business podcasts. But at home, he was just Dad. He kept his schedule clear for school events and never missed dinner unless it was unavoidable. Rachel opened a small nonprofit on the side, one that helped single parents with newborns who had no support system. "It's what I needed when Marcus was born," she told David one night, "and what you needed back then, too." Together, they built more than a family. They built impact. Jessica, on the other hand, faded into the background. She never remarried, never found another long-term partner. Her social media accounts went dark. Whatever small jobs she managed to keep were just that, jobs, not careers, not callings. Every now and then she would search David's name, hoping to catch a glimpse of the life that might have been hers. But those glimpses grew fewer and further apart. She never reached out again. Whether it was guilt or pride that kept her silent, David never knew. And honestly, he stopped wondering. One day, a letter arrived in David's office. It wasn't signed, no return address, just a handwritten note. "You were right. I didn't deserve them. I hope they never remember me. I hope they never feel what I feel now. I hope they grow up knowing what love looks like, because I didn't." He folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. He didn't show it to Rachel or the girls. Some things didn't need to be reopened. Some lessons didn't need to be retaught. At Lily and Grace's high school graduation, David stood in the crowd holding Rachel's hand as the girls took the stage. Valedictorian, debate captain, honors cords, a standing ovation. He looked at them, strong, brilliant, kind, and felt an overwhelming gratitude for everything that had gone wrong. Because it had all led here. When people asked David later in life what his proudest achievement was, he never mentioned the company, the salary, or the mansion in Dallas. He always said the same thing. I raised my daughters to never give up on the people who stay. That was his legacy. And Jessica? She became a name the girls had once heard and then forgotten. A chapter that ended on its own. A reminder of what love isn't.